Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Cyclone2 and today we're going to be taking a look at two potential tropical cyclones in the Western Pacific Basin. Now these storms could go on, especially the western one that you can see could go on to affect the Philippines as a tropical storm, and the next one could also affect the Philippines, maybe even Taiwan or Japan as a Category 1 typhoon. Not particularly strong systems, but again could be posing a risk at present time. So you can see both the systems here where the cursor is. System 1, that's 99W off the top of my head. That's got some swirl to it and some pretty decent convection as well. Minus 80s in there, defined by those yellows on the windy.com satellite. And then Invest 90W over here, the more significant system here. This is the one that we're expecting to get a lot stronger. This has minus 85s in it, some significant cloud tops on that front, but no rotation yet that we can see. We flick over to visible imagery, you can see Invest 99W really starting to put on a show with some rotation, and again 90W definitely does have some rotation. You can see significant thunderstorms, that westerly flow, so again not bad systems. They've definitely got a good start. Current wind speeds right now at the surface look like this. We've definitely got that low pressure area here, which is associated with the further right storm 90W. That's got winds around the core of around more further north, the core of around 24 knots. And then the weaker system over here, 99W, doesn't have any significant winds at all right now, around 20 knots, but that will definitely start to pick up. Now this is late Saturday local time. You can see that the storm here, Invest 99W, definitely does start to get some pace picked up. I mean, that's got winds now of around 40 knots, which is definitely tropical storm status. That will probably attain tropical storm status if it does keep the organisation up fairly soon. Wednesday as well, it goes in, probably organises a little bit more. Again, winds of around 35 to 40 knots in there. And it does approach the Philippines, bringing probably weak winds, maybe significant gusts up to around the 30 knot region, but winds will still remain light. Rainfall doesn't look to be too much of a threat. It'll just bring it back a little bit. Doesn't look like there'll be some thunderstorms popping up over the Philippines in association with this system, but the main rainfall should stay around the centre of the system. Now, what gets more interesting is that the ECMWF doesn't have Invest 90W becoming anything significant at all. In fact, it really just waits until we get more systems later, sort of around next week as we start getting into June. That will fire up, but the GFS tells a different story entirely. Now, we go back to Monday right now. You can see these two systems quite clearly on the rain imagery. We go back to the winds, you can see just above at flight level we've got 40 knot winds, that's about 35 knots at surface level. And these storms do organise quite well on the GFS model. Now this one goes, Invest 90W goes into the Philippines. There's probably Tropical Depression Dante, or Tropical Storm Dante maybe. That's some significant winds there of around 40 knots. Wednesday, the storm basically dies off. It's moving over Catanduanes into Luzon as a tropical depression. Then we have to start watching this storm over here, which will be the stronger of the systems. That's already picking up some significant winds there, 40 knots. We could see some rapid intensification out of this system. I mean, it definitely does start to get its act together quite well. Still 40 knots. And then it sort of dies as it moves north of 15 degrees north and doesn't really affect land, becomes quite broad. Right now, definitely not much of a system at all. But then, actually, that is interesting. Sunday, it absolutely blows up in size. It does 42 knot winds. It does start to get quite heavily sheared at this time, but intensifies again, goes into a bit of a stall actually. That's 54 knot winds. By midday Sunday, we're starting to see our first yellows. That is cyclone force winds approaching that 64 knot threshold. And then we start to see some really compact yellows start to blow up. That's 65 knots in there. And this storm then goes up towards the Ryukyu Islands, and then we'll start to recurve towards Japan. The ECMWF has none of this whatsoever, although maybe a bit of a weak swirl over here. Again, that is nothing. Now, the ICON model goes out to 5 days. A pretty good model. It'd be good if it went for a little bit longer, but it doesn't really show much in the way of tropical cyclone activity here. Sort of shows two systems that have sort of merged, but not really. Let's take a look at rainfall accumulation right now. The ICON model is suggesting that rainfall totals, that yellow, the green areas is 1 inch or more over the next 5 days. Reds, 4 inches or more over the next 5 days. Thankfully, those reds don't extend over any of the Philippines, but Palau could definitely be in the way for some significant rainfalls. ECMWF over the next 5 days still has some significant rainfall, about the same over the Philippines, but then really significant rainfall as this storm moves through over the western parts of the Philippines, up to 100 mil. That's 4 inches of rain in that area. And Palau will definitely be seeing some significant rainfall totals. This black here indicates rain of more than 500 millimeters, but thankfully that is staying offshore. Now the GFS tells another interesting story. There's more model discrepancy here. The pink area is 250 mil rain or more, that's 10 inches. We've got spots of 10 inches towards the Manila area, and then western Luzon as well in association of tropical depression. Of the tropical depression or tropical storm that moves through here, which will pick up the name Dante. And then we've got the storm that moves through here, the more significant storm on the GFS that dumps some significant rain, but thankfully not over land. These two wind observations here, they are both from ships, so that is not land area there. It's very good that ships do bring in our live wind data. Now, wind accumulation from the GFS model over the next 10 days looking like this. The highest winds we'll see are around 70 knots over the Western Pacific Basin, but as we start to head up into the Ryukyu Islands as well, you're going to start to see winds of around 45 knots be felt as this system does approach those islands. From the first system, parts of the central Philippines, of the Visayas region, likely to be receiving around 30 knot winds on that front. Nothing too significant, nothing out of the ordinary, but still significant winds. So we need to be watching the tropics quite closely on these Western Pacific storms. On that note, that is about all that I have time for on the Cyclone Tracking 2 channel. We're so close to 200 subscribers, so consider subscribing. We're also very close to 3,000 subscribers on my main channel, Cyclone Tracking. Also make sure you subscribe to that for graphical storm updates. Anyways, that is about all from me. Make sure you subscribe. If you do like these updates, leave a like, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.